While I'm mostly pleased with the results of my printed circuit board that I designed, sent off, and has now returned, there was one small minor problem with it, very minor, and I can explain it to you. As you can see over here, I've been assembling it and putting it together. My plan originally was to add these holes in here and use standoffs to hold the panels up off of the printed circuit board. But I made a small error in my thinking. Let's go take a look at the printing and I'll explain it to you. But before we start, here's a word from JLC PCB, who is sponsoring these videos. When calculating the size of these holes, which are going to use M3 standoffs, I set the hole diameter, you can see it down here in the inspector, at 3.2 millimeters, which is the correct size for the M3 screw. What I didn't do was think about the fact that that would be the equivalent to the inside diameter. In other words, that's the size of the screw. It's not the size of the standoff. The standoff is closer to 6 millimeters. So if I come down here and change this to 6 millimeters, you can see here that this is a much bigger object going in the corner than what I thought I was going to have. That would all be fine, except for the fact that two of these holes right here are in the very corner of the panel, and this third one is over here on the end. And if you look at this photo here, you'll see that the panel's corners are taller at those spots. They're raised there. And when I go to put these on to my board, these higher corners lift that end of the panel up higher. That would all be fine, except I end up with a lopsided panel. But the solution was not that complicated. It just means I have to change my strategy a little bit. I'll show you over here. What I've done is because the standoffs, like you see here, are a much larger diameter and they get caught under the corner of the panels, I decided to not put the standoff on, and instead I'll go with just a screw. Let me pull one of these off and I'll show you what I did. So basically I've got just a screw and a nut in there, and that means now that when the panel goes on, that screw pokes up inside here. It doesn't hit the corner that is taller. Now, there were other ways to solve the problem. I could have just taken a file and filed those corners down a little bit and made them fit, but this seems to work out pretty good. So let me show you what else is going on here. I've gone ahead and I've installed the components here on the board. I've got 8 resistors here. I decided to go with a value of 220 ohms instead of 470 ohms, and that has to do with the fact that we are turning them on and off so quickly, and the persistence of vision is what makes this look like there's an 8-digit number there, when really there's only 1 digit lit at a time. So I'm going ahead and using a smaller value resistor, which gives me a little bit brighter display. So I've got all of the resistors out here, and I've added these headers on both sides. This one right now has pins attached to it. These two headers are identical on both sides. I've got the shift register here, U1, shift register there, U2. Everything's soldered and ready to go. I've put this display panel right here in place, but I haven't soldered it down yet, and I'll do that here shortly. And I'll put this one back in, and it takes a little bit of finagling to get all 12 of these pins in, but I could do it. There we go. And these now press down firmly against the ends of those screws. And it does just what I wanted. It holds it just slightly up off of the printed circuit board. The panel looks good there. I've got the logo that I added. I've got my call sign. And all of the solder connections are hidden underneath the display panels. So let's get the soldering iron out. I'm going to solder all these pins, 24 pins, and we'll turn this thing on and see how it lights up. Okay, let's make a little bit of room here, and I'll just put these extra screws in this case here. I've been experimenting with different ways of elevating these panels, and I've come up with one I like here. And we just turn this board over, and I have to solder all these pins. There's 24 of them, so I think I'll just use standard practice here and solder a couple pins on each panel so I can see if I need to do any adjusting. My solder, I'll just kind of reach over here. I'm pressing down so that I feel like it's down tight where I want it. Little solder on that one, and I'll press down and put a little solder on that one. And now let's turn this over and see how it looks. It's already solid. See, this one is kind of wiggly. Let's put this one down. We'll do the same thing there. I'll press down here. Add a little solder. Do the same thing there. Now, am I happy with that? Seems to be a little bit of a gap between the lines, the panels there, a little gap between the panels. Checking the alignment here. I think it's pretty close. I'll go ahead. We'll solder it down. Then we get to fire it up. See what it looks like. In preparing for these videos, I've had this put together and taken apart several times. I really like these blue digits, and I've gone online and hunted for them, and I can't find them, and I don't remember where I got them. I've had them for some time. My guess is I saw them and purchased. It was kind of a impulse purchase off of some website some eBay site. Sometimes when I'm ordering such a small making such a small purchase on eBay, I go look at their store and see if there's just anything else that we might add to the order, just so I feel better, if I'm actually ordering more than $1.69 worth of something they're going to ship to me for free. If I can get the total order up to $8 or $9 or $10, I feel a little better. Now, as much as I would hate to have to unsolder this thing, I'm not going to clip those leads yet. I'm going to fire this up and see if it works. One of my wires has come out over here. Okay, let's see if it goes. Well, you gotta plug both ends in. There. Now let's see if it goes. Look at that. Now I've got a simple counter going, but I started it at 10 million so that I would light up every digit, and it's increasing by 1 every second there. This is what it was all about. is to have a nice display. I'm sure the camera doesn't do justice on this color of blue. It probably comes out looking mostly like it's white at your end. But it's really super pretty. And it's all done. So I guess I'll shut it back off. And we'll just clip these leads off. We'll call this a done project. And hey, don't forget to subscribe, like, and share.